Hi, I'm Miss Lyles, your principal, and I'm going to be reading chapter 49. It's called The List. The next day, we had a new crisis. It started when I overheard front desk calling a St. Bernard rescue to see if they could take a 7-year-old St. Bernard. Only one reason front desk would do that. Geraldine's name was at the top of the list. Of course, we had a protocol for that sort of thing. First, the big bark, then the group howl. We hoped our voices would make a difference, at least by the big dog a few days. But management wasn't swayed by the big bark or the group howl. We used them often. That's not to say that management wasn't fond of Geraldine. They spotlighted her on the website, moved her to a pen in front, and talked to a foster home network about her. When none of this worked, management began calling her dog-loving friends. Like I said, all of us Dogtowners love Geraldine. She had a way of giving you a nuzzle just when you needed it most. I was beside myself wondering what to do. First, I hopped down to the basement to get Mouse. I wanted him to confirm that Geraldine was number 1 on the list. It looked to me like she was, but we had to know for sure. Chapter 50. Robots Don't Get Ideas. When I hoppity-hopped by Metalhead's pen, he had his noise in his manual again. He hadn't shown any interest in Geraldine, so I was surprised when he asked about her. I understand Geraldine is experiencing some difficulties. Yep, I said. I have a solution for her predicament. That should have been a cue right there. Robot dogs don't get any ideas of their own. They're programmed to do what humans want. But yesterday, Metalhead had proposed his own escape plan, and now he was claiming to have a way to help Geraldine. I didn't believe it, and I wasn't going to take the time to listen. I kept hopping, didn't even slow down. Metalhead barked loudly. I ignored him. All I could think about was Geraldine. Chapter 51 is called A Tail Out. I asked Mouse to run over to the office and check the clipboard, but he shook his head no. Then he pointed at a Metalhead. I motioned for Mouse to hurry, but he crossed his arms and glared at me, his tail thumping the ground. For a little guy, he sure was stubborn. I gave up and hopped over to find what Metalhead was yapping about. I've been trying to tell you, I know how we can assist Geraldine. Please hear me out, Metalhead said. I'm all yours, I said. If I share my idea with you, will you and the little guy assist me in my pursuit? Metalhead asked. I considered my answer carefully. I didn't want Metalhead to leave Quinn. Quinn needed him, and I knew Quinn wouldn't be back. But I couldn't stand to lose Geraldine either. If your idea works, if he saves Geraldine, I said. Metalhead nodded, and we touched noses, which is how dogs promise. We need to initiate a tail out. Get everyone involved, Metalhead said. A what? I asked. A tail out. When Dogtown opens tomorrow, every dog turns away from the patrons. No tricks, no nuzzling, no puppy eyes. If a human gets close, we'll growl. Only Geraldine is friendly. Only Geraldine does her act. Only Geraldine sticks her nose through the fence, licks and loves on the humans. This was a lot to ask. It meant all the dogs in Dogtown would have to give up their dreams of finding a forever home. Just for one day, but still. Maybe it was a trick. Maybe an opportunity for robot dogs to get the upper hand. What about the other E-dogs? Can you get them on board, I asked. Probably better if we get Mouse to unplug them. My mouth dropped open. What a brilliant idea! Management plugged them in every night. Why not unplug them? Do we have a deal, he asked. Yes, I said, touching noses again. We do. Chapter 52, Diva of Dogtown. Most of the humans who came to Dogtown wanted a little dog. Only a few were looking for a big dog, especially a 220-pounder like Geraldine. Nobody wanted an old dog either. Old dogs had big vet bills. They were set in their ways and they didn't have long to live. If they got a puppy, they'd have him for 10, 12, or 15 years. If they got an old dog, it might only be for 1 or 2. But Metalhead's idea was the only one we had, so I threw my heart into making it work. Getting all the dogs on board would be a tall order. Every dog woke up in the morning dreaming of being chosen. Nobody wanted to be given up the chance. I started with Geraldine's best buddies. Trooper, the Mastiff, was all in before I even got the questions out. I wasn't surprised. We all suspected Trooper had a thing for Geraldine. Soon all the big dogs had signed on. The reception was surprisingly good with the medium-sized dogs, too. They looked up to the big dogs. Everybody said yes, until I got to Dasha, the diva of Dogtown. Dasha, an Irish setter, had been a show dog once. She spent most of her day grooming herself and telling anyone who would listen about the time she got second place in her category. When I explained the plan to Dasha, she said, "Who?" "Geraldine," I said, "the St. Bernard in 22. "Oh, her." "Yes," she says, "I'm beautiful," Dasha said. Dasha was like a foxtail in your ear. All she could talk about was Dasha. I was about to go on an errand about how the whole world I was about to go on a rant about how the whole world didn't revolve around her when Mouse whopped me with his tail. He bugged his eyes out, and I held my bark. Instead, I said, "Of course she did. We all do." It was true. Dasha was stunning. No one could figure out why she hadn't been adopted. Even so, there's nothing more difficult than giving a dog a sincere compliment when you want to take a bite out of her leg. "Does she?" Dasha asked. Mouse's tail continued to hit my leg, so I nodded. "If there was the best of Dogtown, you'd win," I said. Dasha's ears perked up. "You think so?" "I do," I said. "Is there a best of Dogtown trophy?" she asked. She was in her dog show stance, back straight, ears perked, tail straight out. Mouse wrapped his tail around my leg and pulled at it so tightly it squeezed the blood out of my only front paw. "Not yet," I said. "Oh," she said. "So what about tomorrow?" I asked. "Tomorrow?" "Yes. You know, I've noticed the hair on my hind legs could use a trim. I should get that taken care of before the Best of Dogtown competition," Dasha said, licking her back leg. "Thank you for helping out Geraldine," I managed to say before Mouse's tail yanked me out of there. Chapter 53, A Love Fest. By the time we opened the next day, everyone had agreed to the tail out. Now we just needed one human to fall in love with Geraldine. The first family who came in was only interested in e-dogs. Since the robot dogs had not been charged, the family decided to come back another day. Next, a big, lumbering man with muscular arms bulging out of a black leather vest strode in. He had a scar on his lip and a nose that looked like it had been broken a few times. He was drinking a soda, and when he was done, he crushed the can into a tiny ball in his fist. But when he saw Bear curled up sleeping, the man's scary face melted, and I saw the little boy he had once been. "Why, hello, little one." He clapped his hands, his scarred face as gentle as could be. When Bear responded, or when he didn't respond, the man's massive shoulders slumped and his eyes got real watery. At Dasha's pen, the big man whistled. "What a beauty!" Dasha, being Dasha, could not resist a compliment. At first she preened for him, then remembered what she'd promised and turned her tail out. The big man waited for her to turn around, and when she didn't, he moved on, the chains around his massive boots clicking with every step. Trooper, who still had on his reading buddy sweater, was doing very well, ignoring the man. "Here, boy," the man wiggled his big hand into the pocket of his black leather pants and pulled out a dog biscuit. Trooper's nose twitched. Drool dripped from his mouth. "Come on, fella, I'm not going to hurt you," the man said. Trooper stared at the biscuit, transfixed. Then his eyes moved to Geraldine, and he set his chin down in his pool of drool and did not get up. The man's face grew long, his steps slow, his shoulders sagged. I was worried he was going to leave before he even got to Geraldine, but he kept walking. Oh, how he smiled when he saw her, his eyes shining with kindness. "Why, hello, Geraldine," he said, reading the whiteboard sign. A volunteer brought Geraldine out, and she wagged her tail and nuzzled him. "Aren't you a sweetheart?" he said, petting her. He watched her do tricks. He scratched behind her ear and under her chin and gave her a belly rub. It was a love fest. He was there for the better part of an hour. Geraldine had found a home. In Chapter 54, The Motorcycle. Then, suddenly, I heard the sound of a motorcycle starting up. Uh-oh, you couldn't take Geraldine home on a motorcycle. She simply wouldn't fit. Maybe he had a car at home. Maybe he had a friend with a car. Maybe he would come back wearing hiking boots and walk her home. But as 2 o'clock became 3 and then 4, my stomach began to hurt. If he came back tomorrow, it would be too late. Chapter 55, When I Was a Kid. By this time, the dogs were getting antsy. They'd been given their chances for a home, and it hadn't helped Geraldine. They were ready to abandon the plan. I didn't blame them, but I wasn't going to give up on Geraldine. We had to at least give her one entire day. As the minutes ticked by, I did what I could to hold on to the coalition and keep it together. The clock said 4:15. A rush of humans came in and then left. 4:30, 4:35, 4:45. Border collies are good with numbers. Some of us can even tell time. And I have a lot of border collie in me. But on that day, I wished I didn't know what the numbers meant. Dogtown closed at 5. Even if someone wanted Geraldine, there'd be no time to get the paperwork done. I sat down next to her, wondering what to say. Geraldine spoke first. "You got a big old heart, Chance," she whispered in her deep voice, her big black nose near my ear. "You gave this your all, dog. First thing I do when I get to doggy heaven, I'm going to snag one of them cloud beds for me, and the other I'll save for you. We'll see each other again, dog. You bet we will." I tried to breathe, but the air wouldn't go in, and it wouldn't go out. I had so many feelings welled up in my chest, I almost didn't hear the commotion by the front desk. It sounded like more folks had arrived. I hopped over to check it out. "I'm sorry, we're about to close," the front desk announced, and the people turned around. It was all I could do to keep from nipping the front desk ankles. Didn't she realize this was Geraldine's last day? And then suddenly, a tiny woman in a baseball cap came through the door. She had a great mass of curly gray hair and a big smile set into soft, wrinkled cheeks. By her side was a small boy with a half top to his step. "I'm sorry," front desk hurried to the door. "We're about to—" "We won't be long," the grandma said, plowing by the front desk. I like this little lady's attitude. Grandma types generally head for the small dog pens, but not this one. She and the boy walked by the poodles, the Pomeranians, as if they didn't exist, and then past the medium-sized dogs, the bulldogs, and the beagles. They walked by all of them until they got to Geraldine. Geraldine was tired. She'd done her adopt me routine more times than we could count that day. I could hear her knees creak and she stood up. The grandma opened Geraldine's pen door, and when she leaned down to pet Geraldine, I couldn't tell whose knees were groaning, the woman's or Geraldine's. Then the tiny lady said the words that every dog in Dogtown knew were magic. If I had a St. Bernard when I was a kid, or she said, I had a St. Bernard when I was a kid, the best dog I ever had. Alrighty, that's it for my reading.